Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to Being Conscious. In continuation with our series, which we already started from day one, wherein we released the video of coming from this phenomenal book called The Untethered Soul, and we went through the first introductory video where we had a mutual discussion and agreed that we have a series of these videos on this topic. Specifically, the first video was on the voice in your head. If you haven't watched that, I highly recommend you to watch that video before you start with this video, which I'm going to talk about in this. In this video, we are going to talk about a nuanced dimension of the voice in your head. What if I told you each of us lives with an inner roommate, an inner person who is always going to be with us till our last breath? Now, interestingly, if you closely observe your own life, you can create an analogy to a metro station, to a metro transport, or if you have ever commuted through metro or through a railway, you will understand this, that there are a lot of people who come into that railway or that mode of transport, and they get away or they leave at certain destination points. Similarly, in our life, there's so many people who come in, and there are many people who leave us because they reach their destination point. Now, why did I bring up this parallel? The reason I brought up this parallel is there's only one person who's going to be with you till your last breath, and that one person is the main focus of today's video. That one person is your inner roommate. Now, he really starts with a beautiful point where he says that the secret of inner growth, lies in the forgetfulness of the self. In other words, in simpler words, what he says is the true secret of peace and contentment is to stop thinking so much about yourself. At any given point of time, if you closely observe your thoughts, mostly it's revolving around you. Now you might say, no, it's not revolving around me. It is thinking about that person who did this to me, that person who is always so mean to me, or that person who I glorify. The reason you glorify or demean that person is because that person is related to you. If that person wasn't related to you, you probably wouldn't have so many thoughts about it. So the central idea here is you think a lot about yourself, and it's not just you. That is true for everyone in this world, including me. We all are so obsessed about ourselves. We always think about ourselves. Even the people associated with us, we think about them because they're related to us. If they were not, we probably would not think about them. Now, coming to the point, he says that peace and contentment can only come about, true peace and contentment can only come about once we stop thinking so much about ourselves. And he gives a very interesting and a profound insight to back his statement. And I want to humbly pose that question which Michael Essinger has given in this particular book. He has said, when was the last time your life was free of problems? Now you might say that 5 years back, 10 years back, 15 years back. But if you closely introspect, there probably wasn't a time when your life was absolutely devoid of problems. So the problem here is not the problem. The problem here is the tendency of the mind to search for problems, to search for the rightness of a situation. Now, no matter how perfect our life is, we always have some other problem which is waiting for us in the corner. Or to put it more aptly, what would be right way to put this is, we always are in search of problems. And maybe if everything is perfect, we might find out something which is not perfect. And he gives a very beautiful and a very apt definition which distinguishes what being worldly is and what being spiritual is. And I'm sure if you're watching this video, you also would have fumbled, you would have also felt baffled when you came across the distinction between being a worldly person and being a spiritual person. Because often the lines are grey, often the lines are crossed, and we feel so confused about these definitions. He says very simply, worldly person doesn't really mean that the worldly person doesn't have stature, the worldly person doesn't have materialistic achievements. All it means is the worldly person is always trying to fix the outside world to suit his convenience. In other words, the worldly person is always trying to find the solutions of his problems outside. Whereas the spiritual person is smart because he doesn't look for the solutions outside, because he knows the source, the root cause of his problems are not outside. It's in here. His own mind is the root cause of all problems. And this is the key difference. And it wouldn't be an overstatement to say that this is the only difference between a person who is worldly and a person who is spiritual. A worldly person is always trying to fix the outside world, whereas a spiritual person understands and deeply realizes that the fixes, the solutions to his problems are not outside. The solutions are to all his problems lies within, and it lies in the frame of reference he's viewing that particular situation, the so-called problem. I would like to give you an example, a perspective building example. Let's say that you are going towards a building which is mammoth in size, a skyscraper kind of a building. Now for you, from that frame of reference, from bottom, if you are standing at the bottom of that skyscraper might seem mammoth, that skyscraper might seem majestic. But if you're viewing the same size skyscraper from a flight which is traversing around the same proximity, you would notice that same skyscraper as a puny thing. Now, this example really helps you visualize the perspective I'm talking about. Life is a game of perspective, and this has been told by so many people across the world. And this is the difference between a worldly person and a spiritual person, which I found so apt, which I found so revealing and insightful, to say the least. Now, this inner roommate, Michael gives a very interesting way to deal with this person. He says that visualize this person, this inner roommate, as a live person outside, in the outside world. And just think that this person is constantly talking to you. Let's say you're chilling for the day and you're watching your favorite show in the television. And instead of being fully engulfed in that television, your inner roommate is constantly talking to you. Is constantly giving you some inputs which are not relevant, maybe relevant, but they are always dicey. He suddenly wants to do so many other things rather than just watch the television. And he also says, Michael says, challenge yourself for a particular exercise. If you are able to sit with yourself for a complete day without any need of stimulation, you will notice how neurotic your inner roommate is. And one thing you would have observed, that a lot of people are unable to meditate. The reason they are unable to meditate is because they find that haunting. Their inner demons are coming out, and when their inner demons are getting revealed, they don't want to face them. They want to probably hijack that to some other distraction, through maybe having a conversation with a friend or a loved one, so that they can feel a temporary sense of relief, or maybe they would probably go out somewhere. The reason it is so important to spend time in solitude, because we are not even aware that this person, this inner roommate, is the source and the cause of all the seeming problems in our life. And once we create a subject-object relationship, which we talked about in the first video, we suddenly begin to realize and we suddenly begin to create that gap, a certain distance between that inner roommate and us. Also, one very interesting thing and an important thing which we have to focus on here is understanding that even if you could start this challenge by watching yourself, by creating that feeling of metacognition, which modern day neuroscience calls this phenomenon which I am talking about, metacognition, then you will realize that all these conversations, all these decision points which this inner roommate is saying, doesn't make sense. Imagine if this inner roommate was a real person, and one point in the day he has some opinion, towards the end of the day his opinion is changed, and if you're relying on this person to make major decisions in your life, it wouldn't be too much of an intellectual exercise to understand your life is going to be a catastrophe. Because this inner roommate, this inner person is so neurotic that his thoughts change every day. With every sunrise and every sunset, his thoughts keep changing. I hope this video brought about this perspective of how not to make that neurotic inner roommate your guide in life. Because 95 to 99% are using their mind to make decisions. But they don't understand how fluctuating the mind is. One day it's happy, other day it's sad. One day it's jubilant, the other day it's melancholic. To understand this difference is the beginning of awakening. I hope this video, this great understanding of having this inner roommate, if you can visualize this as a person, then it makes a lot of sense to you. Then it makes a lot of sense to you as to why you should release yourself from the melodrama of your mind. Because the mind is not serving you. To the contrary, the mind is treating you very badly. Because you have left control, you have left the control of your mind in terms of believing that voice in the head is actually not yours. There's a distinction between you, the witness consciousness, and that thought process. Now, this can be applied in a host of different things. Suppose you're feeling angry, or maybe you're feeling jealous. Ask yourself this very important question. What within me is feeling jealous? What within me is feeling angry? As soon as you genuinely ask this question, there is a gap. Till now, you were believing that those emotions, those feelings are yours. But as soon as you ask this profound question with the keen sense of observation, you create the gap in the continuum. And once you create that, and you don't have to do anything in it, you just have to watch it. You don't have to put extra effort in it. Because when you try to put extra effort and you try to pressurize your mind, the mind will rebel. The mind will fight back. And no one of us is so capable to fight with the mind. Remember what Lord Krishna talked about in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. He said that the mind is extremely powerful. And only through practice and vairagya, which in other words means detachment, can one master the mind. And detachment is not something which the world has painted it to be. Detachment is not that you go up to the Himalayas and you start meditating and you completely cut down all your blood associations. That's not detachment. Detachment is when you understand, when you cut the ties of the mind and yourself, when you understand that there's a distinction, there's a difference between what the mind is thinking and what you are thinking. And that is when you realize the true science of what Michael is talking about in this book, The Untethered Soul. So this is just a second video in the larger scheme of things, which I call the awakening of consciousness. I hope you gained value and insights out of this video, and I'll meet you in video number 3 as we'll explore this book in more detail. We'll talk about every other things which Michael is talking about in this book, and we'll try to connect it to our own life in more practical ways that we can think of. Thank you so much for your time. If you are viewing my video for the very first time, an humble request to subscribe to my channel. If you are enjoying the content and if you really find value in the content I'm delivering through my channel. Thank you so much, and I'll meet you in the next video. Bye.